All right. My name is Raulf. I'm the founder of Boulder SEO Marketing. This is the SEO Insider Podcast. I am super excited to have Kelley Myers, head of brand, social, and influencer of Autodesk, with me. Kelley, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome you to the SEO Insider podcast today. It's a real pleasure to have you join me. As the head of brand, social, and influencer at Autodesk, you bring a wealth of experience from your senior roles at globally recognized brands such as Microsoft, Starbucks, the Walt Disney Company. With a career spanning over 2 decades, you're known for your data-driven approach, expertise in crafting authentic brand stories, and deep understanding of the evolving digital landscape. We recently met at DigiMarcon in Seattle. Thank you so much for being here. Did I miss anything? Do you want to say a few words? Anything else that we need to know about yourself?
Yeah, happy to add a couple more things. Thank you again. I think this is great. I'm excited to speak with you today about the topic of social and SEO. One other thing, I also am a senior adjunct professor at the University of Washington, and I teach leadership development. And I just finished last night a course on social media marketing. And the topic of SEO and social media popped up, which as it should. So I think it's a really great and germane time to have this conversation.
Yeah, and then so when we met at DigiMarcon in Seattle, we met over a few drinks, and I think I told you my story about Avis. You know how in my opinion,
Oh, yes.
they
Yes.
try to scam me and many other people. And, so we'll talk about that throughout this conversation, how you can use social for SEO. So this discussion is truly about the intersection of social and SEO. And clearly you're an expert, you're teaching this topic. So let's get into it, right?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. So Kelley, it's again fantastic to have you here on the SEO Insider podcast. We connected at DigiMarcon in Seattle, and I was intrigued by your suggestion to discuss the often underappreciated connection between SEO, search engine optimization, and social media. From your perspective, leading brand social for a major company like Autodesk, how do you see social media activities directly or indirectly impacting a brand's search engine visibility and performance?
Sure, sure. It's it's actually multifaceted. So I started my career in digital marketing. I actually built websites and did design. I built listservs for email marketing, all those fun things. And so SEO was part of my early career in digital marketing. I had to think clearly about what I was doing. These are the days, too, Chris, where we were doing things like writing keywords in white font on a background just to make
Oh
sure
my
that it
God.
ranked correctly. Right. So we're talking. I'm dating myself. I'm dating you a little bit. We are definitely people who have seen the revolution and evolution of SEO over the last 20, 30 years. Um, and so at some point, you would see these two things naturally intersect, right? When you think about if there's a search option on a platform, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, there's an opportunity for you to think about how your content will rank within that platform. And then that will then think about how that ranks for your web work down the road. And so when I was talking about this literally last night in class, we were talking about search and SEO. And I said, if there is a search option on a platform, you need to think about how you're structuring your keywords, your titles, your description, the language that you're using, because that's how people are searching. And so with the intensity when it comes to being on a platform for social, people are looking for things all the time. The hashtag was started to help people search for things because hashtags were there to actually, create this sort of marker of you can get to it here. And now you can search for anything. And so it's only natural that we're sitting here talking about SEO and search and how it actually impacts social, because we are in a space where we're using the same mechanisms that we use to go online to look for something to the same within a platform to look for something.
Absolutely. Why don't we? All right. So thinking about that connection, I wanted to bring up something we briefly touched on. I already mentioned the that Avis damage scam that
Mm-hmm.
I is
Mm-hmm.
happening. So I shared how I used our micro SEO methodology on a LinkedIn post about that experience. So I put that post up, and I actually used AI to create it, help me put that post up. And if anybody wants to do a search for it, just do a search for Avis damage scam. You'll see what I'm talking about. So it actually ranked uh, at the top in Google within 24
Yep.
hours for that, main keyword. So how can brands strategically use their social media platforms, particular platforms like LinkedIn, which Google seems to favor, to manage their online reputation or even influence search results for specific, perhaps challenging topics like that?
Really, really good question. Um, My husband and I love to listen to music. He listens to music. He's a guitar player, and he likes to think about the instrumentation and what's happening in the music. And I am a writer, and I love the lyrics. And so when you think about really strong SEO, you're thinking about language, and you're thinking about language that people are using in a way that resonates for them. As an example, when I led consumer social for Microsoft, I did so for Surface, which is their laptop brand of computers. And one of the conversations we would have back and forth frequently was, Surface devices are not called devices. You and I are not going to go shopping for a device. I'm not going to go get a device. I'm not going to say that language. I'm going to go get a laptop. I'm going to go get maybe a PC. Maybe I'll get a laptop. Maybe I'll get a computer. I'm not going to say device. And so by pulling forward natural language when it's relevant to an industry, to a brand, to a consumer concept, you're actually then helping what you just explained, which is to take the language of that Avis damage claim, and be able to rank on a web search for it from LinkedIn. I don't know the intricacies of which APIs are being shared these days from social platforms into search engines like Google's, but I do know that you're seeing it more and more in the reverse as well. One of the things that I've noticed often, and maybe you can speak to this, is when you're in a city, a new city, and you pull up TikTok and you start looking for things, you'll start to get served information, right? I have a friend who loves chocolate chip cookies. And when she comes to Seattle, she always types in best chocolate chip cookies. And so she'll start to create and craft a feed in TikTok that actually is giving her tips and tricks for travel, what she can do in the city itself, and then, of course, where those great chocolate chip cookies are. And so I think for a lot of brands, it's the same experience. Think about your audience, think about what they're trying to find, and then use that language to craft your content and material. So those two things naturally meet up in a way that's supported by SEO, the algorithms, and location services that are happening within cities, within, visits within towns, things like that.
So we hosted a webinar on AI and SEO, and I'll put the link into the description field of this podcast below in the YouTube video. So I think a lot of people, sorry, on that topic, they're abusing AI, right? They just use AI to create content. What we see is that authentic content, like that LinkedIn post about that Avis damage scam, resonates, works well, even though I used AI to help me create the content. It was a real experience, right? It was based on source
Yep.
content, experience that, I experienced. So I think that's important to mention that I think authentic content has the best chance to rank.
That's
Um,
one of the
like
one
those,
of the
yeah.
Sorry, that was one of the
Go
classic
ahead.
hallmarks of social, right? Social media and authenticity go hand in hand. You have to have them together. And so what you're sharing is exactly why it resonates so well. You didn't craft anything that was hyperbole or that was, completely stupendous or unbelievable. You crafted something that was such a mimicked experience across so many other people. That's why it worked so well, right? One,
Yeah.
it's a frustrating story. It's a situation. It's like the classic, hero's journey. You went and you did something, it didn't work out, you've shared it with the world, and you've got people going, hey, this was me too. And so you've picked into what are popular terms and keywords and phrases, but also in a very authentic spot. And you did so in a way that it captures the attention of the algorithm simply because it also creates a lot of engagement. And that engagement, which is what LinkedIn is also ranking as a higher relevant score for you, is also then pushing that forward probably into the Google algorithms of actually having that served up as a top search result.
You have a strong focus on data insights and analytics. What kind of data points or correlations do you look for to understand the relationship between social media engagement, content performance on social channels, and organic search trends?
That is a really lovely multi-layered question. So let me
Yeah.
unpack it a little bit. One of the key efforts in anything you do around social is to drive consistency in what you're posting in your content and then making sure it's relevant to your audience. So those two pieces are actually really germane to how we think about what you're doing for SEO and for search. And so when we're crafting content, when we're crafting strategies, we're trying to do so in the space and in the vein of a person who's looking at our content. Organic social media is difficult to grow. It's really easy to do with paid. You can boost your content, you can get more people to see it, but organic really is hoping that people will come see you. I describe organic media, social media like this. If you and I are driving to the airport and there was a billboard on the side of the highway, and if you happen to be looking up and saw the billboard, you have seen someone's post in organic social. Because I was driving, I wasn't paying attention to the billboard, but to the road, I didn't see the billboard. The content is there. It is out in the world for anybody to see, but I happen to not be looking when I drove past it. Organic social is the same way. And how brands and individuals are ranked algorithmically in some of those platforms is different than for an individual. And so oftentimes I'll hear things like, well, I, as person A did something and it ranked really high and I got so much engagement. Look, I'm so good at this. You might be, and that's true. I'm not going to actually, defend or refute that. But for a brand, there are different algorithmic gates that they have to go through. For an example, if you were on Instagram and as a brand you posted multiple times a day, the platform itself may suppress that content for up to 4 days. Therefore, having a chronological or an important dated piece of content, not a good platform to use that for, because you as a brand are not going to be given the same sort of preferential treatment that you and I would have if we were friends on those platforms. And so all these considerations and all of these things go into how you think about and how you create content that's searchable and discoverable for those platforms. More people who can discover it are then going to see it. More people who see it will then hopefully follow you. And then your brand conversations become part of the overall zeitgeist of a platform itself. So those things are all these little gates and checks, but it comes down to really being consistent and to showing up again and again in a way that makes your audience feel seen and relatable. That way they're sharing your content, they're talking about it, they're discovering it more.
Interesting. It's a little side question. You do social all day long for work, right?
I
How
do.
active are you in your personal life? Is that a big part?
It's like it's what is it? The cobbler's children have no shoes. So I would say that for many people who are in social media strategy, who are practitioners of the craft, aren't always in the same space of being social media for themselves. So I don't consider myself a content creator yet. But I do think that there are lots of folks who do that really well. Like I hire content creators because I want them to be on the camera. I want them to think daily about my brand and what we could be doing. That's not me. So I think there's probably people who love to do that. I am active on social, but probably not as active as I could be. And we'll see if I change that at some point in the future. But yeah, I certainly, if you go look at my stuff, you're gonna be like, wow, she's kind of quiet. Yes, I am. I got a job. I've got jobs. I've got things to do. So I'm not out here promoting myself. But I don't actually disparage anybody who wants to be in the content creator space. It's a lucrative and fun spot to be in, but it is work. And it could be its own full-time job in addition to the job you're doing for a brand or a company.
Awesome. Hey, by the way, did you land that job as Starbucks Global Coffee Creator? I saw you've
Oh my
posted something
gosh.
on that
Would
on
that not
LinkedIn.
be so much fun? So I love that they're doing this. I have no correlation to it. I don't know who the hiring
Yeah.
manager is. I saw it pop up from another connection. Excuse me. I saw it pop up from another connection of mine. And I thought, what a fun job to do. And it's really interesting because Starbucks could just hire creators to do that. They could hire somebody just to come in and do a 3-month stint or a 6-month stint. The fact that they are going in, doubling down on an internal partner, partner is the word that Starbucks uses for their employees. So there's an internal partner they're going to bring on board with this external creator. I like that because I like the energy between the two. I think there's a lot to share in the world of coffee. The idea around where, the whole bean journey from, growing coffee to serving coffee. There's so many cool stories to tell, and Starbucks does a beautiful job with that. So having this content creator role, take the world on this journey with them is super smart and incredibly timely. I am curious to see, and this is not disparaging, but a year's a long time. That's a lot of storytelling to do.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how captivated people will be for a year's time of storytelling. I think there's a recent example that was one we were all sort of surprised by. There was a person who left Portland and sold is not the past tense of sailing, Kelley, who sailed to Hawaii from Portland. And he did so with his cat. And he sold everything. Did you see this on the
No, I
news or
have
social?
not. I did not.
I can't even think of his name right now, but he left his corporate job. He kind of said, forget it, threw on the hat, bought a sailboat, learned to sail, took his cat and sailed across the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii. And in doing so, he was sharing his journey along the way and talking about what he was doing. And his story was this hero's journey. He has met something, he has been frustrated with it, he changed his world, and now he's gone on this journey and he took everybody with him. It was a 21-day, 27-day journey, and people were captivated by it. And it was things like, a pump failing, or a shower he was taking, or getting snacks, or talking to his cat, or seeing other people, out in the world. Awesome. That was really beautiful. It was time bound. There was some scarcity in the content, and so we all wanted to tune in. I'm curious on how they're going to keep that going for a full year. What is the story you're going to tell on month 3 versus month 9 versus month 12? But I am all in on this experience. I'm so excited for them and what's going to happen. And I will be following along as well because I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I love Starbucks as a brand. I love the coffee. It's in my cup right now. Not going to lie. But I think it's a really cool experience to see how they're taking that content creator role and really pulling it tight and close to the brand. Because I think sometimes that space between brands and creators can be obvious in some instances. And so it'll be cool to have this person truly enmeshed in the Starbucks brand and the Starbucks culture for coffee.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea. And so Starbucks is gonna pay somebody to travel the world a year to visit different, Starbucks around the world. And I think
Yep.
somebody from Starbucks is gonna join them, right? So I'll put the link to that job below as
Yeah.
well, just so that our listeners have an idea what we're talking about. It's a great idea, can I think work incredibly well for a brand. So thinking
hmm
about brand storytelling and authenticity. How can social media content, when created with an authentic voice, contribute to building the kind of authority and trustworthiness? Thinking about EEAT, which is a very important ranking signal that Google values for SEO. Are there specific types of social content you've seen that are particularly effective for this? For example, like the Starbucks campaign.
Sure. I think what I would say is I'd go back into that first piece of conversation we had, which was around if there's a search function within a social platform, there's an opportunity for you to think about SEO. And so it's less around the storytelling types and more around, are you operationalizing your storytelling in a way that you're taking advantage of the platform algorithms to support your story being seen by more people? It's common knowledge that within organic social media, only 1% to 2% of your followers will see content. That's true for platforms like Meta, X, YouTube in a certain capacity. Your followers, who they follow, all those things tie into it. TikTok changed that. TikTok said, we're actually less worried about who follows you and who you follow. We want to know if the content's good. And we'll know the content is good because other people will tell us very quickly if it's good. And so that's where I say it's not necessarily the types of storytelling, it's, are you taking advantage of all of the pieces and parts? One that I see often that I think makes a lot of sense, are you using the in-app captioning services of your native platform? So for example, if you're putting content onto TikTok, if you're editing it off of TikTok and then popping it onto TikTok, and so you have burned in captions, you might be damaging your ability to rank for visibility and viewability of your content because you didn't use the in-app feature or function to create your captioning. So these are the little things where you want to use what's available in the platform because they're going to help rank your content. And if your content gets ranked on a platform, then that has greater discoverability outside the platform because you're actually being able to be seen. So understanding the algorithms is important. It's not everything, and I don't think anybody needs to be completely beholden to them all the time in everything you're doing. But when you're really thinking about these really big moments, like for example, Starbucks and that big creator push, they should pay attention to that. They should pay attention to that. And it should be used an in-app experience and not a branded piece. You'll see a dead giveaways if you see a font style within a video that's not available in an in-app situation, then that's a burned in caption. And there's a chance that it risks the ability of not being seen as easily or ranked as highly because it's not being done within platform tools, which could be interesting to see. The other part of that is, of course, accessibility, which is something I'm also passionate about. And using in-app pieces allow screen readers to actually see the content. So people who have a challenge accessing information online or using assistive devices can actually see that content as well.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I learned something new. Details matter. Holy cow.
They do.
Wow. So you navigated the complexities of both consumer-focused brands, Microsoft, consumer Starbucks, Disney, and now a company with a significant professional B2B audience, Autodesk. Yep. How does the SEO social relationship differ or remain similar when targeting B2B versus B2C audiences through social channels?
Yeah, I love the conversation around B2B to B2C because at the end of the day, it's really business to person, right? It's business to human. You and I are both in business. We are both work in business, but you and I are also people too. And I know this because we talked at the summit itself, and that you and I both have adult children, right? So we're both in the space of college graduates, close to college graduates, early graduates, people in this new space. So we're all in the space of people who are there. They're not yet in the world of business, and therefore speaking to them like that they're a business owner or a business is awkward. We wouldn't do that. And so a lot of brands, and Autodesk is one of them, are changing how they're speaking because they don't want to be seen as a business leader that's speaking in kind of this corporate talk. They want to be seen as a consumer brand. And so you'll see a lot of this in a lot of companies where instead of it being here, follow us for more tips and tricks on how to grow your business, or follow us for more tips and tricks on, speaking to a salesperson, etc. They're really looking at social as, actually, we want to see you where we are. We want to talk to you about your universal truth. There's a piece of content that my team at Autodesk did that is still ranking really high. So if you go to Instagram and look at Autodesk, you'll see this. It's one of the top reels. And the content was, I worked on that. It's not a particularly complex concept. It's literally the concept that people take a lot of pride in the work they do, especially in the construction, architecture, engineering business. People who work on buildings are proud of them, and they should be. And so oftentimes we would see and hear kind of colloquially, people say things like, oh, my partner worked on this building, and every time we walk by, they tell us about it. I know that to be true. I have an uncle who worked in rebar construction in the southern U.S., and every time we drove by one of the hotels he worked on or one of the structures, there was this whole story of, oh, his name was Homer. Uncle Homer did that. Uncle Homer laid that rebar. Uncle Homer did that. And so the video itself is simply just that universal truth of pride in your craftsmanship. It is a B2B video because we're speaking to people who have done what is considered business, but at the same time, it's that universal truth of pride in craftsmanship of what they've done. And so that's a video that actually speaks to the human, to the person. It is the business talking to you and recognizing what you have done. And that celebration is what makes it so social. People see it all the time. And the comments are really cute. The comments are like, oh, this is what it's like driving in the car with my dad. He worked on these kinds of things for this kind of time period, etc. And so those universal truths are actually what I think make more sense for us in how we think about speaking to people. And so how can a business talk to a human? Not a business talk to a business or a business talk to a consumer. It's really how do you talk to someone who's that end user? End user sounds a little harsh and it sounds very transactional, but business to human, business to person is a relatable concept I think we all can get behind.
Man, I love that answer. Yeah, I mean, reflecting on, as you were talking, I'm thinking about my business, right? People are not hiring Boulder SEO marketing. They're hiring us because I do all the sales calls and then, I bring team members into the conversation as needed. They're going to
Of
meet my
course.
business partner and then the lead strategist, right? So they're hiring the people behind the business. So I think
Yes.
that's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, as someone deeply involved in the creator economy and influencer marketing, how do influencer collaborations and user-generated content, it's a big thing, right, on
Yep.
social media, potentially influence SEO? Are there strategies for leveraging these relationships to benefit search visibility beyond just direct traffic? What's that
Yeah.
connection there?
Yeah. You know what? That's an interesting one because I think, so if I unpack it a little bit, somebody who is a creator or an influencer marketer themselves, they are the business, right? That is, they have a website, they might have a Substack, they might have an email newsletter. They are the business. And so they're thinking about, I guess we could call it traditional SEO, right? They're thinking about how do I rank if someone's looking for an influencer for, consumer brand, if they're looking for a beauty influencer, if they're looking for a photographer or a writer. They're thinking about that themselves. And then there's the output of what they're doing, right? They're doing these brand collaborations. I would love to see influencers and creators be as educated on SEO for the content they're going to create on behalf of a brand as they are about creating content for themselves. I haven't quite yet seen that pulled up. In fact, the first time I had a lightning bolt deliberate thought about SEO and social was when you and I talked. And I think it came back again from my background in web development design and digital marketing all in. I've led marketing strategies for a lot of these companies, and they always included a digital component, which was that web component. And so until you and I talked, I hadn't yet put them together in that same space, but it's an interesting one. And I would love to see influencer agencies or creators themselves come in and say, hey, I also know how I can help you rank. Like, wouldn't that be powerful? Because what they're doing then is taking all those steps I talked about operationally. They're thinking about keywords. They're thinking about terms. They're going beyond just a hashtag. They're using in-app pieces to help their search ranking go. They're driving a hook earlier on. They're really coming in and being a student of the business to help actually create content that's going to rank higher. That would be a really cool experience. I'm not saying I don't know if it's happening. I just don't know within the last, you and I met a few months ago. I just don't know if people are actually doing that. And I haven't yet pulled it into my own discovery process with new influencers and creators. But it's something I think could be a really interesting differentiator for them as their own independent businesses to think through. I can also bring with you the ability to heavily rank or higher rank in search results in app or on platform for your content with me. That would be really cool.
Absolutely. So I do think there is a disconnect, right, where influencers or the social component, they don't take advantage of SEO. Just to give you an example, we opened an office in Fort Collins, which I think you're very familiar with,
Yes,
right?
I am.
So we got into, the Google Business Profiles, the map pack, then we created a location page. So we have already two listings on page one if somebody's searching for SEO company for Collins or something like that. And then we did digital PR. I mean, it's not influencer marketing, but we did optimize press releases.
Okay.
Using the right kind of keywords. And now we have at least 3 or 4 listings on page one. So I do believe there's a disconnect and people are not fully taking advantage of what could be done. So I
You know what's
completely.
what's interesting is that so again, my background started in, literally web design. So I did UI, UX, all that fun stuff. Loved it. We were all very worried about where we were going to end up in the search rankings for Google. That was incredibly important, right? This is what we were all trying to do. We as humans have gone a little bit blind to organic versus sponsored search results. We've all seen this. We know it to be true. And right now, with AI in the mix, AI is actually suppressing even more of those search results because people are reading that little cute AI summary and not really going deeper than they need to at this point in time. It's happening. It'll change again, but that's certainly what's happening right now. When you talk about how and what we're pulling together from an SEO perspective, you have to think through what are people actually doing, and you have to put yourself in the shoes of someone looking for something. And I love SEO because it allows you that ranking ability, and there's definitely this like competitive nature to it. But with AI in the mix, it's also changing that story a little bit. And how people view those things is changing the story a little bit. And even the simple act, and I'm sure you do this often with clients, just go Google your name. Go look at your business. Go see what it comes up about you. Like, go see what pops up. Um, that actually can help you think through of, probably a SEO 101 study of what it looks like. But even being able to do that helps you see what people are looking at when your name pops up. If you're an influencer or creator, when it pops up, even when it comes to where your social ranks for the company. So if you typed in your company name, where does your social platform start to show up? Where do you start to see things arrive? Is it LinkedIn? Is it X? Is it on Facebook? Do people have access to your content or information? Is there some sort of gate or firewall behind that? But even those are a simple way to think about what are we doing in order to make sure that we're ranking in a space on search that pulls people closer into either our social or into our web platforms and properties.
Awesome. So, on that note, last question. Kelly, you mentioned AI overviews, right? These
Yes.
AI generated piece of content that are now they're keeping more and more people on Google. So we're seeing impressions of websites going up, but traffic going down. And I just recorded a video on that topic. That's the reality that we're living in. So looking ahead, with the rapid evolution of both search, AI overviews, AI mode, GEO stands for Generative Engine Optimization,
Hmm.
and social platforms, how do you anticipate the relationship between SEO and social media changing in the next few years? What should marketers be focusing on now to stay ahead of the game? Should they attend your class? Last big tip here, Kelly.
I think that here's what I would say, first of all. Um, when it comes to social media and you're hiring practitioners in that space, they need to be in social daily. The algorithms change every 3 to 4 months. It's true. And you can tangentially be aware of that. But if you really want your work to be competitive in the marketplace, you need to understand how that and operates. And that means things like SEO. It means things like AI. It means things like what is happening on a platform. Each of the social media platforms want you to stay on their platform. That's what they want you to do. TikTok wants you to be on TikTok. They don't want you to leave TikTok and go to a website. That's why it's really hard to find a link on TikTok. Instagram does not make it easy. Link in bio is an awkward mechanism. We all do it if there's a really good piece of content we want to go see, but it's not an easy way to get someone off of Instagram into a website itself. as people who sit in social, they need to be aware of what and how they exist in a digital ecosystem. Social alone is not going to solve a problem. Web alone is not going to solve a problem. Having somebody do a podcast, having somebody do, an influencer marketing event, those are all part of an ecosystem on how to drive awareness, conversion, relationships between people and the businesses that they frequent. It's a matter of just staying aware. It's a matter of staying curious and staying interested. And I talked about this when we had that conversation back at the conference. Being
Yeah.
curious about AI, I think, is a healthy space to be in. When you start to be fearful of it, when you start to balk at using it or start to be frustrated with it being and showing up, you're going to be behind the power curve. I don't know what the next 6 months, what the next 6 years are going to look like. We're all watching and waiting. But I think by staying in that seat of curiosity and openness and the willingness to pivot what you're doing will help you stay one step ahead of what is going to be a really incredible revolution in digital marketing for the world, truthfully.
Couldn't agree more. So when we spoke, I'm not sure if I mentioned, we actually had developed an AI agent that now complements our micro SEO strategies methodology. So what we're implementing now, simple terms, it's contextual, multi-platform content creation, optimization, and distribution. So in my opinion, it's the long, word for GEO, but this is what you need to do, right? And content that needs to put up through various means that, could be just like organically on a website, on
Yep.
LinkedIn, it could be through influencer marketing, right? This encapsulates, I believe, strongly believe what, anybody needs to do if you want to succeed in, getting your content to be shown to the right people. Yeah,
Correct. Correct. Content is still queen.
exactly.
Content is still queen, and it's still something that you have to think about. And it's one where those who choose to put the effort and to put the work in on their content, it will work. It will be rewarded, but you have to pay attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting more complex. You have to do it the right way. There's no hack or switch, or it's like you got to do it this the
Um,
right way, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
All right. Awesome. Kelley Myers, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I had a blast. Maybe we'll talk again like 6 to 12 months, see,
Yeah.
if this world still exists the way it does, what has changed.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed this conversation. I'll talk to you next time.
I did as well.
As always, everybody out there, stay safe and healthy. Until next time.
Right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.